me. I'm gonna be great. Our speaker today is Oladayo Bode-Balogun, and she's a dynamic speaker, author, and transformational voice, called to be a catalyst, encourager, and healer, driven by a clear mandate to rebuild family systems. She is devoted to restoring those who have faced trauma or dysfunction back to the original design, equipping them to rise above their past and walk boldly in their highest potentials. Behind the stage, Oladayo is a seasoned financial services professional with Barclays Bank UK, wife and mom. She is a wife and a mom, and she's carrying her identity with joy as Abba's delight, a faithful friend. Our life's work is a journey of transformation and impact, touching hearts and inspiring change wherever she goes. Isn't that beautiful? Oh God, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for clapping for her. Thank you. So, before you talk, I just want to say that, look, every one of you here, I appreciate you joining, and I appreciate the people who have been joining since the beginning of this program. I know that our speaker also has been joining this reinvention series. She has been a part of it. I just want to tell you guys to clap for yourselves for joining in and joining in early today. Thank you. So, welcome, Oladayo. I know you to be a visionary, and thank God for Vika that created the platform for us to meet. And I keep saying that everyone I've met recently, they're not coincidence. Like, I know that God has a reason of bringing us together, and we're excited to share your wisdom today, as regarding family and reinvention. So welcome, and let's hear from you. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about what comes to your heart anytime you hear family as related to reinvention.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much, Toby, for having me here. It's such a joy to be here. I appreciate the honor. I appreciate this invitation. I think there's a hot mic somewhere. Okay. So thank you very much for having me. Indeed, I have been part of the Reinvention series, and it has been nothing short of awesome. And so I am just glad to be part of it tonight. And thank you to everyone who has joined. And yes, speaking about family and reinvention, what comes to mind? Um, if I think of family as a group of individuals, I mean, a couple of people would say living under the same roof. Some people would say related by blood, or choice, whatever the case may be. But family is a group of individuals who are joined by a common purpose. And then reinvention separately is a decision to recreate your paths, to choose a different path because of the destination that you have decided, right? If you think about career reinvention, which is very relatable for most people, if you decide, okay, I have been, say, a teacher all this while, and now I want to be a nurse, you would have to completely change paths. You would have to take yourself away from what you have always done, and you would have to, go in a new direction, learn new skills, get new training, be disciplined, be determined until you become, a nurse, until you can start to then practice as a nurse, right? Reinvention is similar. And if I just merge those two things together to say family and reinvention, I would say that it is say, individuals, rebirthing and rebuilding themselves for the purpose of creating a more wholesome family, a family with deeper values, a family that would thrive, a family that would succeed, right?
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. By the way, I want to mention that if you have missed any part of this series and you want to go back or you want to watch the previous episodes, we're going to be posting the link where you can drop your email address and you get a replay of this. Thank you so much, Oladayo. So this question is kind of related to the first question that I asked. So I'd say, why do you think family is such a central part of reinvention journey? Because you really can't take yourself out of your family, and your family is always part of your journey, whether in the good or bad, whatever it is. Your family is just part of it. So why do you think that family is a central part of your journey, your reinvention journey?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for that question. I mean, just like you said, you can't separate family from reinvention. And that's because family, first of all, I mean, if we understand what family is and the purpose of family, which is, having people come together and sharing a common interest, a place where people are nurtured, a place where people are, it's almost like a production center, you know. Family produces a certain quality of people, right? And the quality is dependent on the quality of the individuals that have the role of shaping the family.
Yeah.
So if as an individual, right, if you reinvent yourself, what you're automatically doing is reinventing your family, and by that you're actually reinventing generations, right?
Yeah.
Because every change that you bring to yourself, of course, profits you, shift you towards the highest potentials that God has created you for, but it also does something else. It also ensures that, there's a fall through, a natural fall through of who you are into your family, because family is really modeling. God
Yeah.
has entrusted us with, maybe as parents, maybe as guardians, with children and people. And it is really how we are, who we are, what we have on our inside that really determines, what they become, what they believe, what they experience, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like family is one place where people neglect reinvention, you
Mm.
know, individually and family. People just feel like, because, like I said, I mentioned earlier around career. When people are thinking of their career, they're like, they know they're on point. They're like, okay, I need that training, to switch from being this to being a banker, right? Everyone knows that they need to do that. But when it comes to family, people are more laid back because, okay, you're not going to lose customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Money. You will go back home and your family will accept you the way that you are. So people are not seeing the need. You see a crack and you're not seeing the need to reinvent. You're not seeing the need to fix it. You're not seeing the need to become who you need to be to ensure that the family is built, that the family, achieves its goals. You're
Yeah.
just laid back. So I feel like family and of course, when I say family, individuals make up the family, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's very important that we start to think about reinvention as families. And as we do, these things individually, as we begin to reinvent ourselves individually, we automatically just, pour ourselves into the people in our families. Because when you think about, I mean, who patterns are formed by daily what you see, what you perceive, what you're hearing, right? And that's how just the way we form our taste buds. We form
Mm.
our taste buds by what we have been exposed to, what we
Yeah.
eat. Different cultures have different taste buds. I would taste something else from another culture. I'm wondering that who are these guys? How do they even
Mm.
do these things? And they too are wondering the same for me, right? So when we reinvent ourselves, in the family system, we're automatically producing a greater outcome, right? For our generations, for our children, we're setting up a legacy. I feel like, when the Bible says a good man leaves um, an
Inheritance.
inheritance for his children's children. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. It can't be money, it can't be houses,
Mm.
right? It has to be a part of who you are. That's what you can give to somebody else, that can stay with them for life.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, that's so spot on. That's so spot on. I was having a thought yesterday that if you really, it was like a question to me. I was just thinking in the line of, when you are saving, like you're saving, this compound interest, you're doing this compound interest saving, you're investing and all that. And that scripture that you just quoted came to my heart to say that, oh, a righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And I said, well, if if that's the motivation, it means that if you don't want to do it, you should check your heart, because it's a true check to say, do I want to leave anything for my children? Why can't they sort themselves? Like, let me spend my money and be happy now. I worked for it. You get it. But but because we have the mind of Christ, and then we know it's just the right thing to do, to leave something, like a legacy for our family, thinking of the future. Now, you mentioned something about patterns, and I want to ask a question around that, to say that what pattern and systems in families either support or sabotage reinvention?
Okay, yeah, that's a really good question because see, the matter of patterns
Hmm.
is a matter of family destiny, right?
Yeah.
Because patterns, if you think about patterns as traits and habits, right, they start small.
Hmm.
Like, you start if you decide today, oh, I want to start to eat a certain way, I want to, it starts as a habit, as a trait, right?
Hmm.
You study for a while, you do it long enough, it grows from just a trait and a habit, it becomes a part of your life, right? So patterns can be good and patterns can be negative.
Yeah.
And it's why it's important for us to choose what we're allowing. Patterns can become strongholds.
Yeah.
They can move very quickly. My pastor says something that when people start, maybe masturbating or pornography or any bad habit, it
Hmm.
starts as a habit. Maybe they're just
Yeah.
trying, maybe their friends, push them into it or something. You continue long enough, it
Hmm.
becomes the spirit of pornography, the spirit of masturbation. It becomes a stronghold that even when the person is saying, hey, I don't want to do it again,
Hmm.
you're like, no, this thing, right? It becomes a stronghold and it's then harder to detach from. And
Hmm.
so when you then think of the family system, just think of everybody in a box,
Hmm.
together. Any pattern that we allow to fall through, that should be dealt with negatively and we do not deal with.
Hmm.
Now, prayers without fasting would naturally reproduce itself in a greater dimension
Yeah.
in our families, right, for generations to come, except there is an intervention. And
Hmm.
that's why it's very, very important, that we, take we start to recognize patterns. We look, at patterns critically and we do not allow them. And God is actually looking to us. He's looking for people who will break the negative patterns and who would carry and sustain the positive patterns. Because, it's always the both. I mean, nobody is all bad or all good. And when we talk about the matter of patterns, it's not to blame anybody,
Hmm.
is to look as the one who has the light, as the one who has the understanding that can then start to look at this thing and say, this thing, I have seen it in my father, or maybe
Hmm.
in my father and his brothers and his sisters, or my mother, and I'm seeing it in myself, right?
Hmm.
I need to work on it first for myself, and then I need to ensure that it does not pass on. To my children. And just peradventure, you're already even seeing it in your children, then there's work to be done
To be
because
done.
a lot of people, and that's what the enemy does. You see, when God creates a destiny, they come with their assignments.
Hmm.
Everyone comes to the earth with their assignments, and we saw in the life of Jesus, his assignment predated his birth. It was
Hmm.
announced what he was going to do, and Jesus is a model for all of us, right?
Yeah.
So we have our assignments, attached to us as we come. God knows this, and the devil knows this, and that's why he allows these patterns, to perpetuate because the more the patterns alter us, they create dysfunctions, and the
Yeah.
more that we are removed from our original, pattern, from the way that original design, the more that the assignments that we came to fulfill on earth would not recognize us. We will not be able to connect with this. And that's why
Hmm.
you find people living purposeless lives because the enemy has come early while people were sleeping. See, I think in families, and so whenever I come into a setting, when I meet people, when I come into a country, I'm thinking about their family. When people look at people and think, how much does this person has, or what kind of car, those things don't bother me. The
Hmm.
things that I look at when I see people is what kind of family do they have?
We
And
have.
something struck me when I came into the UK. right? I mean, you guys know that, a lot of the Caucasians don't even go to church in the
Yeah.
UK. They don't pray or anything. But I was struck by how their family system is, the dynamics that works. The husband did not pray to marry the wife. The wife did not pray to marry the husband, right? Yet the way that they take on the roles and responsibilities, the way that the man is thinking about service in the home,
Mm.
different from where I'm coming from. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Do you
Mm.
see the way is just a pattern that has been passed on from generation to
The
generation. It's
generation.
not
Mm.
about prayer. Do you
Mm.
see? It's not about fasting. It's just how they were built. To say that this is how you do things for your family. This is how
Mm.
they marry even very young. A 22-year-old guy gets married and he knows that, oh, this is what I have to be. His wife is pregnant. He's planning his role. If you've ever had colleagues, he's planning, he's so involved in the pregnancy, you're wondering like who's pregnant,
Mm.
between both of
Yeah.
you.
Mm.
At the end of the day, the reason that we have certain patterns in families is what has happened. It's not
Mm.
because it's the right thing, right? It's because of what has allowed to happen. Let
Mm.
me give, a scenario. But before I even give that scenario, I think there's something I want everyone to know. First of all, um, children's brain, I mean, research has shown that children's brain forms very rapidly between ages 0 and 7.
Mm.
So these are very key years in the life of a child.
Mm.
And many times, these are the years where parents have not even discovered themselves, they've not found themselves.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so you see, who they are is what the child experiences and what the child becomes. So the
Mm.
child's brain forms.
Mm.
They don't even know what they
Mm.
have built into the child, right? Maybe
Yeah.
it's one habit like that. Let's imagine you're the kind of person that, oh, when you're in church or when you're with friends, you're, lovey-dovey with everybody, you're praising them, you're smiling, and immediately you get into your car or immediately the visitors go, you start to backbite, you start to pull down. See, you have introduced the spirit of deception into your child. Your child
Mm.
sees that picture continuously. They begin to feel like, okay, I think we're all lying to ourselves, right? What we need to do is when we see people, we, love up on them, we're jovial with them. And when they step away, then we can, pull them down, we can tear them down. That's something you have already introduced into the child. And guess
Mm.
what? The child will take it to a next dimension because they are learning it so early. It forms part of their mindsets, how they think and how they
Mindset.
process things, right? And so
Mm.
that's why it's really important, coming back to reinvention. We need to catch the foxes. We need to reinvent ourselves. We need to think about how what we're modeling, how we're
Mm.
modeling what we're modeling.
Mm.
Because beyond what we say to our children, who we are is the legacy that we will truly pass on to the children. And patterns
Mm.
have existed long enough because people have left it be. That
Yeah.
anger is just in my family.
Mm.
That pride, people have just left these things be and it has continued to pass on. And God is looking out for people who would stand up and say, this thing goes no further.
Yeah.
It's right. This thing ends. It ends, with me. It will not even go into
Oladayo. Mm.
that's something that's really, really important for us to really start to think about when we think about patterns and we think about, the family system.
Thank you so much. That was so powerful. I mean, that's so powerful. Thank you so much for bringing that to light. To say that the things that we do systematically forms what we leave behind as legacies. It's not like legacies are not built in a day. Like they don't just build overnight. There are things that systematically have, and if it's a positive habit as well, looking at it in the other light as well, we are systematically building it to say your families where you tell your children, well, yeah, we don't fail in this house. It's just in their psyche, it's already registered to say in this house we do not fail, in this house we do not give up on each other, in this house we do not do this. And and if you like we've been counseled and we've been taught as well that the legacy of God, the legacy of Christ, passing on the legacy of Christ to them, to say, in this house, we are children of God. And many of us grew up like that. We grew up in the Christian families and all that. Not like our families are perfect, but because that seed, the seed of God was already in us, that was planted in us, started to grow. And you find many of our generations that even when they derail, and they, things happen and all that, life is life, and something still brings them back to that pattern. Something brings them back to the source. So it's really, really important. Patterns and systems in families are really important. So I want to ask a question, and this is individuals, looking at individuals within the family, to say that if we have someone within the family that is in transition, or yeah, they're in transition from one level of life or phase of life to another, what are the strategies that people can take within the family to support this person, at that stage of life? People are maybe, like you said, for example, switching careers, someone is getting married, someone just had the baby, they're just coming into motherhood, they're in their midlife, things are happening. How can we, within the family, individuals within the family, support that person going through transition?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you again for that question. So transition is a season of change.
Mm.
It's a period where people are, sort of moving from one season into another. And what's key for family members to do at that point in time is to provide love and support,
Mm.
right? A lot of love and support, a lot of prayers, a lot of presence. And it's important that I mention that change is not easy on the eye, right?
Mm.
And there's a very high tendency that people want to find change. You
Yeah.
know, your someone comes to tell you, someone within the family is trying to change careers, nobody understands, what are you doing? This is, we know this is this is what you studied in school, why have you wasted all those years? And people are trying to, it's important. I mean, if the person is an adult and we know that, the person knows what they are doing, then what we need to do is to support them, is to encourage them, is to pray for them, right? And not resist them. Sorry about that, my alarm. And I will just share a story of someone that I had, Stephanie Ikiokavo, Pastor Stephanie, who's now Apostle Stephanie. I'm not sure if a couple of people know her on the call,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
see, um, say more than 10 years ago, because now she's been 10 years in ministry. When God called her to, and was trying to prepare her for ministry, the
Mm.
journey did not sound it wasn't straightforward. It didn't make sense.
Mm.
And so imagine telling her family, that okay, so she had a high paying job. She was a real estate broker, had a lot of money, but God was calling her into ministry. And when God is processing us, He takes away those crutches, those things that we lean on. And so God had then asked her to resign her job and then go and serve at the one church, the church that she has pastored for the past 10 years, right? As an usher. He didn't even tell her he was calling her into ministry. And then
Wow.
she had, just imagine the craziness of the whole thing. And people are wondering, what are you doing? Her family is wondering. At times you see families even isolate people because they don't understand what the
Transition.
member
Yeah.
who's transitioning
Mm.
is doing. So imagine, I mean, from what I've heard last year, she had something almost similar, whereby her family was really wondering, like, you should be thinking of getting married, and now
Mm.
you left your job and said that God has asked you to go and rent a house somewhere, move to another city, and start to serve as an usher. Some
Mm.
people would even think it's laziness, right? And I
Yeah.
know that people hide under these things. Do you
Mm.
see? And that's why I
Mm.
say prayers,
Mm.
support. And then
Mm.
she went on and she did that, and see what that has become.
Mm.
As a Nigerian, it has distinguished her, right,
Yeah.
in an American ministry. God
Mm.
has taken her, from that place. Imagine. that Stephanie Kiyokafo had to bow to the pressure of her family. You know,
Hmm.
because there's a very high tendency for families to want to keep you safe.
Yeah.
People who love you. But you see, safe and significance are two opposite ends.
Yeah. They
Right?
don't go
If you
together.
want to stay safe, you can't be significant. And that's why
Yeah.
it's really important, that even when we don't understand the transition that the person is going through, we should, allow them, give them platforms to fly, support them.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you so much. That reminds me of and I want to shout out to my siblings. I'm not sure they're all here, but I know one of them is here for sure. I want to shout out to my siblings because I went through a couple of transitions in my life. Um, but the biggest one for me was the biggest change for me was a divorce. And girl, I can't imagine my life without my family. Let's just put it that way. Like I can't imagine that transition without my family, everything happening all at once, and imagine not having anybody to even, support you or fall back on and all that. And I've seen people in that same situation that it got worse just because they had no support. And even as much as I had support with my transitioning in that area, I have had another area of my life that I transitioned and I really didn't get support. So I've tasted both. You understand? Like I've tasted both to say that and this is not to say that people were not really, just that the people that could support you at that time, they probably were not there. You understand? But because the family is the strongest system, you know the strongest unit in your life, that people that you've always known all your life and all that. So it's very important for us to know as individuals that the people that we call family, to hold them dear in our heart, and whatever they might be going through, like you said, pray for them, whatever, even if you don't understand what it is, just support them, just support. Thank you so much for highlighting that. So I want to talk about clarity, alignment, and legacy, back to legacy. So let me just say, how can individuals gain clarity when family expectations cloud their reinvention? How can you, what can you say to that? Because it can be confusing when, let me give you another example, is that those of us that came from a conservative background, for example, a conservative Christian background, there are still some of them that really kind of frown at things like divorce and all that. Yada, yada, yada. We know God hates divorce. Nobody likes it. You understand? But, there are some situations that really, uh, there's nothing we can do. So, but in the, and I'm really, I really want to just open the door on this. You understand? These are discussions that are difficult for people to talk about.
Yeah.
So how can you gain clarity when everybody is saying the opposite of what you believe that is the right thing for you to do at that moment? You have prayed, you are sure, you can see that everything is pointing towards it, but everything around you is saying the opposite. How can one gain clarity in that when there's so much noise around you?
Yeah, really good question. I mean,
Mm.
that's very practical.
Yeah.
And I mean, you started to answer because you said you have prayed. So I
Oh
think,
yeah.
yeah, that's the first thing. If you're trying to make that kind of decision, I said earlier that families want to keep you safe.
Yeah.
At times I just feel like, okay, you've married this one first, just in your example, like just stay
Mm.
here.
Mm.
No matter what is happening, just stay here and let's see
Okay.
how it will work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And but what you then need to do, and that's why it's important to have a personal relationship with God, because
Mm.
you would, in trying to weigh your decisions against your family decisions, and in many other scenarios, even in other kinds of reinvention journeys, You're trying to go on a reinvention. You're trying to find yourself. You're trying to transition, right? And you're hearing these voices. The first thing you need to do is to sit into your relationship with God and ensure that you're hearing God.
Mm.
Ensure that you're also not going on a destructive path, right?
Yeah.
And then once you get a word and you get a conviction, the other thing you then need to do, because while you would need wisdom to manage your family, but you might not be able to get them on your back immediately. You might not be able to get their support, and so you also then need to build structures around, you
Mm.
need to find
Mm.
mentors,
Mm.
right? You need to find teachers. You need to, look out for who God has sent to you in this, in that season, right? God never
Mm.
leaves us alone. He always, he says he sets, he puts us in families, right? So
Mm.
when you think about that, God also has his own family system for us. You need
Yeah.
to find, friends. You need to find people, right? Even amongst your family, maybe you just have still a few people who stand with you on that journey, right? You need all those people. You need to know who is for you, and you need to keep them close. At the same
Mm.
time, you need to be wise, right? Not to throw away those who don't understand your journey, who don't understand your path, who don't know why you're doing the things that you have to do. It's also important that you act out with wisdom. I mean, I'm always very amazed at Jesus's wisdom, right? Every time the Pharisees wanted, they were sort of against what he was doing, because I mean, I think that's a clear case of reinvention, right?
Mm.
The redemption they had been waiting for had come, and yet these guys didn't want to accept that the savior had come already,
Mm.
right? He was doing a lot of things, a lot of miracles right before their eyes, but they were like, no, they wanted to still hold on. And that's how strong, patterns and habits. They just wanted to hold on, to their
To the
Sabbath, to their
past. Mm.
those things. Change is something that a lot of people fight, even a lot of good people, right? So you then have to start to wisdom. So every time that something was happening and they asked him a question and they wanted to confuse him, he ended up with wisdom, right? Throwing it back at them in a way that they all just left him alone. So a lot of
Mm.
wisdom is needed. Of course, there will also be people are who are benefited from, maybe the dysfunction, the smallness, just the place that you have been. And those people too don't want you to grow out of that, you know. There's also, need for wisdom to manage all of those people.
Yeah.
And once you have clarity from God, and then you then have to edge forward. Like I said, you need a community,
Mm.
you need mentors, you need teachers, you need people who God has put around you in that season. So I think
Mm.
that it's with all of this that you're then able to get past the noise and find
Mm.
clarity and continue to build, because clarity is required to move forward. If
Yeah.
you stay stuck in the noise, you're not going to be able to move forward, because you're going to keep feeling, am I wrong? Am I right? Should I go? Should I not go? Do you see? If you're visiting, for instance, if you're trying to go to a destination and you're not sure, right? There's a way that you're slower on the journey. You're like, should I turn left? Should I turn right? I'm not even sure. But when you know where you're going, you move with more precision, you move with direction, you move with boldness, right? And so the first place is settling it with God, going back to God if you have to, getting
Mm.
convicted, also running, because I mean, because we're human, we're prone to error. Don't just say, oh, God has now asked me, to leave my family and move to Australia, stuff like that. You have to check with the word of God, check with mentors, check, let
Mm.
everything be consistent with the ways of God, with the
Yeah.
mind of God, before you then proceed to do the things that you will do. But once you have that clarity, right, put all the necessary systems in place to support you, because trust me, there'll be days you'll feel alone. There'll be days you'll be tired. There'll be days you'll be discouraged. And if you haven't put systems in place before that time, you would likely just fall, you know, through the crack, or just stop, or just give up, right?
Mm.
And you will not be able to achieve the reinvention, the decisions that you're trying to achieve. So
Thank you so much. That's so powerful. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope everyone is following on this. I hope you are enjoying this as much as I am. I mean, this is such a light. It's such a light. Thank you so much. And just to inform us, if you have missed any part of this reinvention series, We've been doing this series. We've started like 6 weeks ago, and if you've missed any of this, please, there is a link on the chart. You can just click on that link to drop your email address so that we can send you the replay for the past series. Thank you so much for following. Yes, so now I know that every one of us, at least, we've gone through transitions in the past. And right now, many of us are at a point where there is a clear need for reinvention, whether it's in ministry or it's in career or it's a personal life journey, or we're looking at something new to do, or we're just looking at ourselves to say, no, I know I can be more than what I am right now. I can do more. I can be a better person. I'm just going to reinvent. I'm going to go on a personal journey of reinvention for myself. Or I want people to see me in a different light. I want to throw a different narrative, to what I've been before. So while this is going on, how do we align this, with building a healthier family system? This is not this is not in the context of the family itself. This is like personally, how do we align that? Let me also ask this question in a way. Do we look at our families and say, oh, this is my family, this is what is going on in my family? If I reinvent myself, I think it will affect my family in a way, whether positive or negative. So, I wanted to say something to that how do you align?
Okay, so well, if I understand your question, when I think about reinvention and in light of how it would impact my family,
Hmm.
personal reinvention. So first of all, we started to say that if you reinvent yourself, if you think about ways that you can rebuild your life, these things automatically flow down, to your family. Your family is like, after you is the greatest beneficiary of your reinvention because who you are is who your family experiences,
Hmm.
right? And our experiences, they add up to our world. They add up to, see, if you reinvent yourself, what you're actually doing is giving your family a greater platform, a higher platform,
Hmm.
right? Um, of course, God does his wonders, but see, if your reinvention, if this is where you are, what it means is that, the platform for your family will start from here.
Hmm.
If you take it all the way high, what it also means is that, you're giving your family a greater platform to rise. Do you see? And that's how I want us to think about, reinvention.
Hmm.
Thoughtfully, and know that when you become, you're bringing your family along, you know,
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
you're giving your family, because see, one of the things I also used to think about is the fact that, I mean, I just used to study families and look at this person. There are times I just see a person and I can sort of tell the kind of family that they have. I can
Hmm.
sort of just tell if they've had pain in their past, if they've had, just by, some expressions. I know a lot of people have gone through their healing journey and maybe you might not be able to connect, but there was a time in my life that I could just tell, what a person had been through. And the question I have for you is, what do you want your children to experience because they came to your family? Should
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
be advantaged because God sent them to your family over
Hmm.
other families? Should a child, because they went to another family, be so disciplined, have good character, think well of people, serve, are confident, they don't have self-esteem issues? What should be said of people who God has assigned to your family? Because say family is partnership with God. It's a
Yeah.
trust that God has put, in our hands, and God expects returns, right? So when you think about that, it should move you to say that at the end of it all, what should the products of my family look like compared? And I'm not talking about just comparing yourself mindlessly with other people, but you should be seeking to give the people in your family the highest advantage that you can
Hmm.
possibly, you know, accrue to them so that they have the highest platform,
Hmm.
right, that they can, fly with. They're not having to, first of all, struggle. A lot of people from families are, first of all, struggling to come out of dysfunction, to come out of trauma, to
Hmm.
heal before they even now level up and start to move forward. It's like your
Hmm.
retrogression has been introduced into the family as a
Hmm.
result of people not reinventing themselves,
Hmm.
as a result of people allowing negative patterns to just continue because
Continue. Yeah.
my business, well, I am what I am. So when you do all the things that you do and you just behave anyhow and you carry it on, what you're doing is that you are shaping generations. So people are just
Hmm.
going to have anger problems just
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you are their mother,
Hmm.
because you are their father, right? Whereas if they were born into another family where emotions are regulated, right, they're not going to have to struggle with anger. So it's not because the child prayed, though. It's not because the child came, with a certain kind of, it's because they were
Hmm.
born to a family that they
The
picked up
family.
certain traits that has
Hmm.
now become a detractor in their lives, right? So you have to start to think of yourself that way. Like there's
Hmm.
something that you're parting with, into your children. What
Yeah.
do you want that thing to be?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you are so absolutely right on that. What really touched me, the most out of what you have said is the fact that what version of you do you want your children to continue to see? If you properly look at your life, do you think your children really deserve to have this version and just live with it for the rest of their lives? Or do you want to create an opportunity where they can see a better version of you? Like you rightly said, you're the standard and they're going to stand on that standard. Are you going to leave the bar so high for them to know that, oh, I can be better? My mom is this, my dad is that, and I can do better. They can stand on our shoulders. So if we refuse to reinvent ourselves, if we refuse to find out what other part of our purpose as God planned that you refuse to find out, you know do you really want to when you pass on, the issue of we keep going back to the issue of legacy, that when you pass on, is that all, this version is just all they're going to say about you? Or it can be better, by them saying my mom was this, my mom was that, my dad was that. I don't you give them an image of possibilities, if you decide to reinvent yourself. Thank you very much. And I want to give people opportunities to ask questions. If you have any questions for our family specialist, from everything that she has said today, you can please drop the questions in the group chat, and we're going to answer your questions. Thank you so much for this. I also want to say that if you are joining us for the first time, please follow River Nexus on Instagram so that you can get the updates on, this reinvention series is going to be for 10 weeks, and we are already on the sixth week. Ooh. Oh my God, this is so beautiful. So, so that you can join us, we still have other people coming in, speakers that are coming in to share their depth of knowledge and wisdom with us. So please follow River Nexus on Instagram so that we can keep you posted, on the next events that will be coming up. We still have a big event for the end of the year for you to be a part of us. Thank you so much. So now I have this last question for you. No, second to the last question. I think I have another one. Second to the last question. And I think you've answered it, to say what family practices create visible generational impact. Can you give us examples of the practices, family practices that we can be doing that can create visible generational impact?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think it's really important. And I think so because, see, a lot has happened in the family system. And this is not about blaming anyone,
Hmm.
right? A lot of people have grown up with dysfunction.
Hmm.
When people hear dysfunction, people want to say, oh, no, I'm not dysfunctional. But see, if your life right now uh, is not aligned to the original design,
Hmm.
the dominion mandate, you're not
Yeah.
living out fully the assignment that God has created you to. Your life does not feel like a blessing to the gen.
Hmm.
If it's still feeling like pain, like trauma, like, you know, selfishness, like anger, if it's still right, you need to heal.
Yeah.
That's something that we really have to confront without blaming anybody. Because if we start to blame, where do we stop? I remember
Hmm.
philosophy then used to say, what caused, who caused God? If, God caused this, cause, like, who created God, right? If we start to say, oh, who is the cause? If I point to my father, my father can also point to his father, and his
Mm-hmm.
father will point to, do you see? So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, let's leave the blames, even though people have made their mistakes. But let
Hmm.
us stare at the issues that we see and face them,
Hmm.
right? In my journey, I have personally had to go through, a lot of healing, a lot of reinvention, a lot
Hmm.
of facing this thing and saying, oh, how did this thing get here? Oh,
Yeah.
why is this thing here? How
Hmm.
long, are we going to manage this thing? Stop managing yourself. Start to
Hmm.
strive for the highest version of yourself. And the way that you can do that, there are a lot of resources. There are books, there are teachers, there are mentors, there are, but don't hide that thing that you see. Don't hide the dysfunction. Don't put it
Hmm.
under. Seek to heal.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
first thing I will say. And the other thing, I mean, just very closely linked to this is continuous learning and development.
Hmm.
See, a lot of us pay loads. I mean, we go for masters, we pay loads to learn. We don't pay to learn in the family, in the
Hmm.
marriage space, in the parenting space. We're not learning as we should. We're
Hmm.
just, and that's why we are recycling, and that's why the patterns are really recycling
Yeah.
because we
Right.
are coming into it as if we are professional parents, right?
Hmm.
To become a professional in your career, to become a subject matter expert, you spend a lot, you spend time, you spend effort, you go to work every day, you work hard for your promotion, right?
Hmm.
But because it's the family space, people just come the way that they are. You're not
Mm-hmm.
looking to reinvent, to learn, to find out how can I be a better parent? What's happening that I don't know?
Yeah.
I'm in a parenting academy, and I learned loads of stuff, right?
Hmm.
Even as a family, professional myself, I learned loads of stuff. I see things because see, there are truths that you will never say about yourself because of how much they have morphed, into your being, and you think
Yeah.
it's normal until you
Hmm.
start to hear those truths, right? Truth
Hmm.
is powerful. It has the capacity to change, but if you don't know the truth, it can't set you free. And that's why
Yeah.
the Bible says, you shall know the truth, and the
Hmm.
truth shall set
Will
you
set
free.
you free.
Right. So pay
Hmm.
attention, right? And then start to surround yourself, intentionality. Start to surround yourself with people who are going in the same direction that you want to go. You don't
Yeah.
want trauma again. You don't want dysfunction again. Look around for people, who are examples, models in the areas that you're trying to. An angry
Yeah.
person, you cannot surround yourself with angry friends. You can't surround,
Hmm.
you understand? You have to separate yourself and
Yeah.
put yourself with people, who are calmer, and learn
Hmm.
the wisdom on how they do things so that you can also start to adjust. Do you see?
Yes.
A lot of
Mm-hmm.
intentionality. And finally, one that is very dear to my heart is service, right? I wrote a book on family and service, right? And you can look out for it. But you see,
Yeah.
service does wonders. If you see a person who has a lifestyle of service, I'm not worried about that person.
Yeah.
We can easily walk out of dysfunction, because a heart of service is a heart of humility. It's a
Yeah.
heart of character. It's a heart of empathy. You know, you can see things and you're moved, right? Your compassion moves you to want to
Hmm.
do, to want
Yeah.
to serve. And the more that you serve, the more that you give of yourself, the likely that you let go of those habits, those traits,
Hmm.
that are actually dysfunctional. Service brings healing, it brings transformation, it builds
Yeah.
our character, and it points us, to the original path that God has created us. Because in service, we discover ourselves, we
Mm.
discover strength. And then we're able to see how we can serve people with our strength. We're able to see how we can serve our generation with our strength. We are the light of the world. Do you
Yeah.
see? And it's very possible, right, that our growing up has not prepared us, has not opened us up, to the assignment that God has prepared us enough. And
Mm.
that's the thing I should mention. See, it's the role of a parent, right,
Mm.
to identify the strengths, the assignments, the blueprints of a child's life.
Yeah.
That's the gift that God has given us as parents because we are the only ones who watch the children so, so much. We see the uniqueness. We have three children. We can see how each of them are evolving. Oh, this one
Yeah.
likes music. This one likes to talk. This one likes we should give those things to our children as an inheritance. We should
Yeah.
have books for them. We should write
Mm.
out the strengths that we see in our children. We should start
Mm.
to nurture them individually. We should start to think about it in light of the assignments and the reason that God has created them. Do you
Yeah.
see? And when they are 18, I believe that we should be handing over. This is what I have heard God say about you. This is what
Mm.
God has seen me just in my journey with you, right? So
Yeah.
that children are not confused. Miles Morales says that when the purpose of a thing is
It's
known,
not none.
oh, sorry, when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse
No.
is inevitable.
Yeah.
When a child knows, who they are, why they have been created, their assignment, knowing your assignment, knowing your mandate is like a redirectional tool,
Mm.
right? When you know who you are. So, for instance, if you have a glimpse at all that you're going to be the president, of a nation, there's a way you start to behave from the day that you know.
Yeah.
There's
From
a
the
way
day
you
you
start
know.
to dress.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way you start to communicate. There's a way that, so it corrects. It's a correctional tool. It
Mm.
adjusts you. You're not going to just, a conductor will not just maybe pull your clothes and you will slap him back because you just know who you are, right? So
Mm.
at the end of the day, when a child really knows themselves in that way, they have served, from a little age, they know their strength, it has been nurtured, training has been paid for. It's not easy for the world to misguide them, to corrupt them, do you
Yeah.
see, to get them out of shape, right? Because they know who they are. They understand, even if they fall out temporarily, there's
Mm.
they're coming back into something that they already
Yeah.
know. And so that's why
Yeah.
it's really, really important that we take
Mm.
time, and pay more attention to these practices so that we
Yeah.
can have a stronger family system.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just wonder, I hope you guys are feeling these gems that are dropping for us this evening. Please, can you drop fire emoji and everything for my guest today? Thank you so much. I mean, this is so powerful. You know what really challenged me the most was when you said that it is our responsibility as parents to find out the blueprints of the life of our children, is that's a big one. It's a big one. We're supposed to help them, to find the path where at least give them an idea and then they go ahead to go ahead for confirmations and all that from God, but we can help them because we see them from when they're really young, and we can see the trend of what, even when they are not conscious of themselves, we can see what is going on with them. Thank you so much. I we grew up with parents that would say, "Oh, we've seen our dads fail in business, fail in different things, and they rise." So, and that gives us hope to say, "Oh, I saw my dad fail at business or fail at this, and then they start all over again." And then some of us have parents as ministers, and then we see the struggles with ministry, and then we see the growth, the transition, the progression of what happened to them. And that gave us an idea of life to see, to say that, oh, all things are possible with God. We've seen this happen to the generation before us. And, those things form, the ideas and the perspective that we have now, with our own families. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for joining and staying till the end. I just want to say one more time, thank you to Visionary Oladayo for coming to pour into us today. I wanted to let you guys know that, she's an author, and I was trying to look for the topic of our book. Yeah, I have it. So our book is on Amazon. Service, the vehicle to greatness, rebuilding the family system. You can find that book on Amazon. It's on Amazon for you to buy. Please say thank you to Oladayo for me in the comment section. I want you to say a big thank you to her. And I also want to encourage every one of us that next week, Friday, this same time, we're going to be having another edition of the Reinvention series. It's been a blast. And, just to let you know that even though I'm the one hosting this, I can tell you that it has been a blessing. I keep going back to watch the videos of the past episode, and, I can tell you that I keep learning every day. If I were you, I will not miss any other episode of the Reinvention series. You can see for yourself what we gained today. I mean, we brought a powerhouse. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. God bless you. And in the group, in the chat, we have the link of the wait list in case you want to have access to the replays of the ones that has gone, the previous episodes. Thank you so much for joining To the Head. God bless you and see you next week. Love you. Bye.
Bye.